Hello, this is Cynthia Sue Larson with RealityShifters.com, and today I'm talking about Mandela affected books. Not just any Mandela affected books, because I've written about that before, including in my book Reality Shifts, When Consciousness Changes the Physical World. Today I want to share with you something that came to my attention about a book that I wrote, and it just came to my attention this last week. What is that, you might wonder? It happened when not one but two different emails came through from two different authors asking me various questions, and in both cases it reminded me of a certain passage in my book that was originally published looking like this, or Advantage, and then it subsequently came out later like this, the second version. That's the current in-print edition. And what happened with this book? Okay, it's very interesting. What happened is, in the process of going to look up and find and quote a passage, a memorable passage in the book, I couldn't find it. It wasn't in either edition of this book, nor any of the files on my computer that helped create those books and those different editions of the book. And it's memorable because it was the one passage in the book that people routinely used to write emails to me about. And it would happen usually at least once a year, usually more than once a year. I'd get letters from people who were agitated and concerned because I was describing how my salad spoke to me. And I'm not going to give all the details, because if you remember this, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what you remember and, any details at all. Well, anyway, long story short, I couldn't find the passage in the book, so both of the authors I was writing to are also interested in the general topic of reality shifts and the Mandela Effect. So I did describe to them what had just happened, that this amazing passage where I talked about my salad speaking to me and me talking with it is gone, completely gone, as if it was never there. It then occurred to me, when did I last get those emails? What's the last one that came through? And this is the kind of thing when Mandela effects happen in my life. I don't know about you, but this is how it is for me. It's now been maybe 7 years, maybe more. It might be almost 10 years. I'm not sure when I last saw one of these emails from usually a vegetarian or a vegan, feeling quite concerned about the idea that I'd be eating a salad that's sentient. Anyway, it is a slightly concerning topic, and now it's not part of the book. In fact, it's not part of any of my books, because the next thing, being just a human, wondering, am I misremembering something? It's like, sure, it seems like I'd always been getting these emails since 2003 when Aura Advantage first came out in this first edition, and then later it came out in this current edition. But maybe I'm confused. Maybe it was some other book. So I checked all my books, and although that's crazy because it doesn't make sense for me to have included it in the subsequent books. That was the first published book that I had come out in paperback form, and I do remember that was the one. Anyway, that's very interesting, and it's interesting if this happens to you once, but this is now the second time that the Mandela Effect has happened to me for one of my books. And the other book is Quantum Jumps. This is something having to do with the cover image, and I used to have a section in the book describing why does the cover look like this, and if you open it up all the way, you can really see it looks like a person jumping through a wormhole. And how does this tie in with the concept? Most people don't think much about it. I used to have a section in the book that toward the end of the book, as I remember, included a passage, and it's not in the book right now. I first noticed it went missing at the Idaho Sun Valley Conference in 2019, in November 2019. The book itself was first published in 2013, so that's a 6-year period. Apparently it went missing in that time frame, and it went something like this. I've written it up again to reconstruct part of it. It was a paragraph. The whole thing is gone. What it used to say was, as physicists Leonard Susskind and Raphael Busso have suggested, the many worlds interpretation of quantum physics and the cosmological multiverse are one and the same thing. And it's so funny, because when I read this, then I also think, and Yasunori Nomura. Now, of course, he's a physicist. I would have included all of his research at the time in 2013, as I told him when I met him. But as you may know if you've followed my videos, he did not exist for me when I wrote this book, Quantum Jumps, in 2013. So there are lots of interesting things going on with my books. Of course there would be. I'm not too surprised. But I like it when they happen, even though it's a little frustrating, because I noticed that this Quantum Jumps passage went missing when I was preparing to give the keynote address for that 2019 conference that we had in person in Sun Valley, Idaho. But I was unable to include it because obviously the passage wasn't there. But I think I did talk about it in my talk anyway, realizing that, of course, this is the perfect gathering of people. If anybody's going to be understanding how it could be possible that an entire paragraph like that has gone missing, such a noteworthy paragraph too, then it would be the folks who came to that first Mandela Effect conference that we had in Sun Valley, Idaho. It was the West Coast Conference. It came subsequently to be part of the International Mandela Effect Conference, and of course it's near and dear to my heart. So what do these two books have in common, you might wonder. I certainly wonder. When these things happen, I wonder what's going on. Why these guys? Showing the backside of that one. Why would they be significant? And obviously, when it comes to the missing Quantum Jumps passage that I noticed a few years ago now, back in 2019, that's significant because how on earth could I ignore that forever, that it had gone missing? So it got my attention. And then it's kind of like the key to understanding what's going on with the cover of the book and what's the real idea about. How do these things tie in? With Aura Advantage, it reminds me that we are a collective society of co-creators. And if this passage is so offensive to people that they're concerned that if we can hear and communicate with salad and then we eat it, what does that say about us? Hopefully we can work through that. That would be what I'd hope. But now the question is gone, so we can focus on other things, perhaps more important things, such as just global peace with ourselves, with the planet, with the ecosystem. Maybe it's part of that. Maybe this is part of that. When I included the passage, which was rather controversial, apparently, my thinking, if you wonder why did I even have that now missing passage in there, it's because I really admire and respect the First Nations, Indigenous peoples, and the way that they respect and honor all the food that they eat, and the water that they drink, and the land that grows all of the food that they eat, whether they're hunting, whether they're farming or growing things. All of these plants and animals are honored. And that was my intention. Somehow, maybe it didn't come through that way. So for whatever reason, it's probably for the best it's not there. And it sure got my attention this month. So now I'm continuing to ask my favorite question, how good can it get? And I think it's a good question. And I'd love to hear from any of you that might remember either of these passages in either of these books, because whatever you remember can help all of us better understand this entire phenomenon, which fascinates me. So until next time, please keep asking my favorite question, how good can it get? This is Cynthia Sue Larson with RealityShifters.com. Thanks.